And we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Multifamily Hangout. I'm your host, Adrian Danila. Before making introductions here in the studio, I'd like to extend a special shout out to our esteemed sponsor, Apartment Snapshot, the revolutionary platform, the first gamified performance and employee engagement tool designed explicitly for multifamily professionals, is transforming the way we approach performance and employee engagement in this industry. So we want to thank our friends from Apartment Snapshot for their partnership. With this being said, I want to uh, hand it over to Neida, my co-host, to introduce our esteemed guest for today.
Thanks, Adrian. Hello, everyone. We are so excited to have you today. Today we have a very special guest. Well, I guess every guest is special, right? But today's guest, I'm very excited to have this conversation because he is going to be able to provide us with a lot of, I think, help, assistance, and even that support. If you're in property management, which all of us, majority of us are at least, we know that it can be stressful being on site, mental, physical stress, and all of that. It's and your health is very, very important to maintain and upkeep. And so I'm so excited to bring on and speak to Dr. Nabil. Welcome, Dr. Nabil.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
We're excited to have you.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here.
So I don't want to really introduce you and have that long introduction. I want you to introduce yourself. So tell us about Dr. Nabil. Tell us about your story, your background, your career, that sort of thing.
Happy to do so. So my name is Nabil El-Ghoroury. At Dr. Nabil is my socials, so on Twitter and Instagram. I am a licensed psychologist for 20 years. And I have my PhD in clinical psych from Binghamton University in upstate New York. I have been in as a therapist. I've worked for many years. I also worked in associations, so nonprofit management. I worked at the American Psychological Association. Then I was executive director of a $6 million association out in San Diego. And now I'm starting my own business, executive therapy and consulting, where I do psychotherapy with patients, virtual psychotherapy across the country in 39 states. And then I also do executive coaching. I talk about mental health, and this is really what I love, really, the intersection of business and mental health. So I'm really thrilled to be speaking here at the Multifamily Hangout. I gave a talk in November to Multifamily Northwest, which is the Oregon association that does represents multifamily property managers, owners, that kind of stuff.
Nice. So I'm glad that multifamily is seeing that there's a need to take care of our mental, especially being on site. As you probably have heard, it's just tough. There's a lot to deal with. So we'll get into those a little bit later.
Great.
Dr. Nabil, I want to start with my first question. And I want to go back to the time when we had to face COVID. I think that that period of time was probably the most challenging in our lifetimes in many ways, especially from a mental perspective, right? Because we had to isolate, we had to self-isolate, we had to live with people that we didn't spend much time with before, which ironically are our families. And I had to tell you, I had very close friends that were close to divorcing because they ended up from spending not enough time with their families, with their loved ones, with their spouses. They ended up spending the majority of the time, and they didn't know how to manage it. It's a real story. Yeah. So I'd like for you to walk us through the mechanisms of what happened, like how how this whole thing happened mentally. What was the impact at a mental level for all of us, really? because we're starting to seeing a lot of stuff that's like surfacing, and it has been since COVID, and we're trying to make sense of it, right? But we're not specialists, so we're glad that you're here today to share, to share your thoughts and expertise with us.
Oh, I'm thrilled. I'm happy. And this is such a great topic. And it's a great place. It's an awesome place to start. So when the pandemic hit, I'll tell you one story that I think demonstrates this. I was living in San Diego for the first 2 years of the pandemic. And I would go on walks, just to be healthy. And I noticed a lot more glass recyclables in March and April. It seemed to me like people were really drinking a lot more at the beginning of the pandemic. And the thing I think about is, we spend in January 2020, we would spend a third of our lives at work. We'd go to work for 8 hours or more, depending on your position. And you'd have, depending on your city, between 15 minutes and an hour commute back and forth. Okay. And so we had this, this time where we'd separate from our family and come back to our family. You'd go stop at Starbucks and talk to people, talk to the person, the barista. All that came to a halt in March of 2020. And so the normal social interactions that we had at work went down, went very low. And then, like you said, you started spending a lot more time with your family, and more time than you ever really planned to, maybe until retirement, right? In retirement, you spend time with your family. But the other part that I think is important to remember, at that time, we were scared, right? Everyone was like, it's hard to think back. Can you believe it's 4 years ago now? It was scary back then. Like, how did you two feel during the beginning of the pandemic?
Honestly, for me, I think experience are not only based on who we are as individuals, but also they're very much connected to the environment that we're in. Living in a southern state, in Georgia, the measures of lockdown were not as strict as, I would say, up north or on a west coast.
Right.
So I didn't, for the first month, I think it wasn't that big of a deal, and I was kind of allowed to travel, even if I wasn't going to be in one-on-one interaction. I was allowed to hop in my car and drive my properties and actually have a conversation from a distance, right, with my team members. So it wasn't too bad, right? And then probably after a month, we were allowed to go back in office. Of course, we weren't packed in office, but I was going 1 or 2 days a week just because I wanted to, a change of scenery. So for me, it wasn't that. It was actually good in so many ways, because I started regularly exercising, like doing daily walks, which I'm still doing up to this day. I'm very proud of myself, right? So I picked up a good habit. And also it was shocking to me that even after at a federal level, there were decisions made, right? Masks are not mandatory and everything. I traveled in September of 2022. Right. I traveled to upstate New York to speak at a conference, and professionals, people that were there at the conference, they were talking about masks just like it was still happening, because it was still happening. And that was quite shocking to me, because that was not a thing for probably like 6 to 9 months down in the South. And for me to go like back in time, even though it was like only 6 or 9 months, it was really was shocking. And I realized, wow, this is such a large country. And then there's just so many things like that could be like so different. And we're 2 hours of flight away, right? It's been amazing. So that was kind of I will say in a nutshell, my experience with COVID. Nada.
Kind of similar to you. In the beginning, I was like, okay, I'm glad to be home, because I my role, I had to be in the office every day, 5 days a week. And so my commute at that time was like about an hour, a little over an hour, depending on traffic. So for me, I saw it as a benefit. And I was like, hell yeah, like I want to work from home. I'm okay with that. And, I don't have to commute to work or anything like that. But what I think that eventually started to get to me was we couldn't really go out to restaurants or to go hang out at places. And I'm a social person, so I tend to like to be out and about, and I like to go to places. And so that was the only thing that then I was like, well, man, I can't go anywhere. I remember traveling with my kids. We went to California in like August of 2020, and a lot of places were closed, or they were very particular in like who they would let in or what you could do. Like you were limited. And so that part for me sucked. I didn't enjoy that, but I liked the fact that I was able to be home a little bit more and spend the time with my family and just kind of be present a little bit more, something that I didn't have before that.
I mean, there were many positives. The reduction in commutes for people who were able to do that, and but there were also a lot of challenges. In particular, a lot of our coping strategies. If you're like Nate, if you like to go out and have a happy hour, then maybe meet for coffee with a friend on Sunday, all those things had to be changed. And it wasn't as easy to do. You had to be a lot more intentional about how you did it. And and then at work, a lot of our social interactions are unplanned. You walk, I'm thinking at like at the apartments I've worked at, the rental property, the managers are down there, but then some staff will walk in and they'll say, hey, what's up? They'll go get a cup of coffee, and they're talking to you when there's no clients in the office. All that went to zero. And so we were not getting the social connections that we normally get. On top of that, I think it was a stressful, fearful period. And what we do know is in the 2020 and 2021, rates of anxiety and depression went up pretty meaningfully, especially for those, and then for parents, having to, like, a lot of schools were virtual for the 2020-2021 year, either partially or the whole year. Having to teach your kids the virtual stuff because you had to manage your kids as well as do your own work, that became incredibly overwhelming for a lot of people. And so I think, as well as for the kids, there's a bigger increase in mental health stress for adolescents and for kids. So that's a real issue. So luckily, we're getting out of that. People are getting back into their routines. To me, I think about the basics, and we'll talk about this in other contexts. But when you are stressed, focus on healthy eating, healthy sleep, getting exercise, getting time with people. And if you can combine those, for example, if instead of going out to brunch, you went for a 30 or 45-minute walk with a friend, you're getting social time, you're getting exercise. Outside in nature is another thing that helps with stress. If you can walk in a park or by a river or by a lake. And so you're getting your triple, you're triple dipping in social, in mental health strategies. So getting back to basics is the first step for helping. I have some other tips, but we can get into that in a little bit.
Yeah. Now, I want to touch base on a little bit of like navigating mental health in multifamily settings. So, as we know, property management is difficult. And during COVID, we found out that we were important people, right? We had to come to work, just like the nurses and policemen and everybody, that fell into that category. But on the day-to-day of being on site at the property, so many things change, right? Different people, different levels at the property have different responsibilities, right? The property manager has all these deadlines and these reports and the financials, and the owners that they're dealing with, investors and the higher ups, right? There's so many people that they're dealing with and so many things on a regular basis. Maintenance, they have, especially with the snow, if you're in a snowy area, snow emergencies, pipe bursting and all these different things happen, sometimes fires, and just it could be a very stressful environment. So when it comes to multifamily, just in the environment, it can be fast paced, it can be dynamic. How do you recommend property managers and teams to manage their mental health in a setting that often involves tight schedules and varied responsibilities?
The first suggestion I have is really taking moments to decompress. Okay, so taking moments and finding those moments and decompressing. One of our best tools is deep breathing. Taking a slow, deep breath. That's a deep breath that goes to your abdominal breathing, not a shallow breath. So a good example of this is what's called box breathing, which is counts of 4. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds.
Oh, let's do that now.
Why not? Let's
Yeah. All right, you guys, let's all do it together.
everyone at home, get comfortable, put your feet on the ground, seat
All
yourself.
right.
Okay. And let's take a deep breath in through your nose. Hold. Exhale slowly through your mouth. Hold. One more. How was that?
It was pretty calming.
It's good.
It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a very that is a really good strategy. The Army uses that to teach soldiers how to stay calm in the field. When they jump out of a plane and then have to regroup and do whatever activities they have to do on the ground. They need to be able to calm their heart really fast. And this is one of the strategies they use to teach them. You can use this. So let's talk about property managers, right? I'm thinking the kind of stuff we're seeing in airplanes of really angry customers, I imagine are happening in rental property offices. Just they're not getting the TV coverage that the airplanes do. Is that an accurate? That's an accurate
Yes.
statement?
Yes.
So it is. I do think there is a change in what customers are doing. I think we've lost our social skills, honestly. That's my hypothesis. I don't have data on that, but I do think that. Now, what you can do as a rental property manager is you don't have to be as dramatic in that way. You can learn to do a deep breath kind of subtly, or in between clients, like you've had one stressful case and you have another one waiting. Go get a cup of water, take a couple deep breaths while you're going and coming back to be able to regroup. The way I think of it is like it's like a basketball player who's just been fouled, right? And they have a free throw. You can't be hot going to take your free throw. You got to calm yourself down. And if you look at every basketball player, they have a little ritual they do, and they are taking deep breaths. They are slowing their heart rate to be ready for that free throw. And so you can do the same thing. You can learn. I think the right approach would be practicing deep breathing, like 10 deep breaths at a time. Like when you have a break, like after, in your lunch break, in the car on the way home. It's a great thing to do when you're commuting. And then you can start to do it intersperse it in your workday. After a hard call, after a hard patient or a client, take a couple deep breaths and then build it into your life. And then you can eventually get it to where 1 or 2 deep breaths will get you really calmer.
Dr. Nabil, work-life balance. This is a theme that's being brought up very heavily since COVID, I'll say. it's been over the years before that too. So I wanna get your take on the big picture, and maybe you could give us some you could give us some details. How do we, is there a balance? Is this even a conversation, right? Because when you think about it, we say work life, right? To me they're not at the same level, because work is part of life, it's not your entire life, and you don't have to balance like something that's part of your life with your entire life. You have to somehow like integrate work in your life,
Mm.
so you could live outside of work too. So I like to get your take on the whole entire concept, and how do we find this happy medium, this harmony, right, between our lives while at work and our lives outside of work.
Well, one of the things that for people who were remote working at the beginning of the pandemic is the boundary between work and home diluted. And now I know that's not as much of an issue for rental property staff, because so many folks are on site. So there is work and then you leave work. But I think one key thing, to the extent that you can, is protect your boundaries. So being mindful about emailing your team after hours, or and I understand there are parts, some groups, some team members have those responsibilities, but hopefully those are not like you work a full day and then you're on call every night. Hopefully those kinds of things are shifted between different people, different parts of your team. But I think trying to respect the boundaries of your time as well as your team's time. So I'm thinking about managers who manage teams. The other thing I think about is creating rituals for the end of your work. So if you think about your commute home is the decompression period you have. And so, many people who have long commutes listen to music, podcasts, talk to a friend, right? You call a friend on the phone when they're commuting as well. You could do those kind of things. I think that's a great time for deep breathing. I think that's also a great time for sort of for calm and quiet. Sort of getting yourself in the right space to be able to enter home. Uh, Another strategy that I think is really important for work-life balance in general, actually for all of mental health, is mindfulness. So practicing mindfulness, uh, you could call it meditation, but it doesn't need to have a spiritual component. It could just be mindfulness is really about noticing your senses, quieting your thoughts and noticing your senses. What do you see? What do you hear? What can you touch? What can you taste? What can you smell? Um, Practicing that for 5 to 15 minutes, that's like a CrossFit exercise for your brain. It really is helpful at sort of slowing those thoughts down. That it's hard when you have like a lot of responsibilities, like being a parent. So, in those circumstances, you try to squeeze it in when you can, but it may be just like a couple minutes of deep breathing while you're in the car. But I think trying to find time to sort of slow things down and then give you that space between work and home to the extent that you can.
You mentioned setting boundaries, and I'm thinking all along, right? It's definitely great advice, but then I think the practice is killing us, right? When we get to execute, because for example, everybody knows, right? In order to live a healthy life, right, you have to exercise, you have to eat well, you have to eat healthy food. But when it comes to us executing, this is where it becomes a real problem, right? So, about setting boundaries, are there any tricks, or I guess any pieces of advice that you like to share with us and with the audience?
I mean, I was when I was a CEO, I was really clear that for my team, when they were not working, they were not working. And and I had a team member who was going on, she was celebrating her anniversary, her wedding anniversary. and she was going to Vegas and seeing Bruno Mars, and she said, "Oh yeah, but you can text me, you can reach me." And I said, "No, we've got this. You enjoy your concert. You enjoy your time in Vegas." And part of that was because I wanted to demonstrate that I value her time, and I wanted my team to see that and hear that I was doing that. Like, no, you are not working. We've got this. You're going to be okay. So that was also demonstrating that I am committed to mental health. But then the second part, I didn't want those calls when I was on vacation. And so I'm setting the boundary for you to, like, I'm doing this and now you do the same to me. Like, I trust you and you trust me. I think trust is a big part of this. I do realize a fair amount of this is like some positions at properties are on call, right? And so to me, I think you need like the right staffing. And like if you know you have a call every night, it cannot be unless that person's job is being on call, like they can't be on call every night. Like that's not fair, I think. So I think really thinking about your staffing. But if you can, I think what managers can do, the people who manage teams, is really demonstrate a commitment to respecting people's boundaries. And as employees, you can do that a little bit, but you got to be. I understand you can't. Like it's to be careful telling your boss, "Don't email me after 5 p.m." I get that can be a challenge, but so that's where I'm thinking with this. Hope it looks like Nada dropped.
She might have a she's back now.
Oh, there she is.
Hey, I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, my screen just froze, and I'm like, what is going on with my laptop
Actually,
today?
that's a great example of work in the digital era.
Yeah,
COVID world, your internet access is one of the biggest things you need.
it is. It
Uh,
is very big. And I was like, what is happening?
it's great when there's like 3-4 of us, because if one or two drop, there's still a couple left to
Right.
continue to
I
pass
mean,
Yeah.
this is a great metaphor, honestly, for handling mental health, which is, can you roll with the punches? And I think teaching managers to be able to be flexible, hiring managers who have demonstrated that kind of flexibility, which I know has got to be important in rental property management, is really important.
So I wanted to, before I lost myself over here, before I lost connection, I wanted to touch base because one thing about being in property management, especially property managers, and especially those on the service team, the maintenance, maybe
Mhm.
the service manager, the service techs, they are usually on call, right? And so I think that they'll have their moments like the service team typically they'll rotate on a weekly basis on who takes call, but the property manager is kind of on call every day, right? There's
Mhm.
because emergencies happen on site and that sort of thing, so they're called. What would you say to someone in those positions like a property manager or on the service team, um, that they have to be available for those calls, so they may feel stressed, they may feel the pressure of I'm always on at work. How could they kind of help to decompress themselves in between? Could they use the technique that you shared earlier, or do you think they should try to do something else, because at that point their day is kind of taken over just by work?
So, if someone's on call, like I'm going to compare this to, like, I'm not as familiar, to be honest, with what call looks like at rental properties. I know what call looks like for physicians, so I'll use that as a tool. Um, when you're on call, you're not working the whole time, right? And so I think it's important to have be thoughtful and have a plan for that time. I think you know another thing is you get a call, right? Like this, apartment 335 is having an active leak, of their toilet, and and the apartment below is starting to be impacted. Obviously, you have to do something, but rather than running and just getting your heart rate up while you're walking there or jogging there, I'll let you jog. Um, Take some deep breaths while you're getting there, right? And then do what you have to do. And sometimes the problem is just going to be, turn off the water and say, we're going to have to get someone to come in tomorrow morning. I apologize, but do what you have to do, what you can do your solution to the best of your abilities. And then when you leave, I would learn some decompression strategies for how to get yourself out of that. To me, that's like that basketball player. That basketball player has to be able to sort of learn to turn it on and turn it off. And so figure out what works for you. It might be calming music. It might be energizing music. It might be deep breathing. It might be a little bit of mindfulness. It might be a quick workout, some exercise, whatever works for you. And then the other part, the rest of your life, really get good sleep. Good sleep and good diet, good, as healthy as you can. I'm not saying you have to be vegan, but if that's what you want, go for it. But think as healthy as you can across your life.
So the next question, since I was just following up on that, I want to talk about team dynamics, because on site we work with, whether it could be a small intimate team to a large team. We could have like 20 plus of team members within our team. So how would you say, when it comes to that, because we work closely together, how does team dynamics influence mental health, and what steps can leaders take to create a positive and supportive team culture?
Team dynamics can absolutely affect your mental health. If you are in a team that is full of conflict, then you may not be performing at your best, and you may not feeling your best. So team dynamics are very important. I do think the manager, the supervisor, plays a major role, because I'm going to assume many of these rental properties are owned by very big companies, right? And so it's not just, I mean, some are not, but a lot are run like large, like, companies that own hundreds, or dozens or hundreds of properties. So there is the bigger environment of the company that you work in, but each area, each team, the manager can be essentially a lagoon that kind of protects the team from the storm that's beyond. And so I think that manager is incredibly important. Also, the staff you have, but the manager sets the tone. So the manager can set that tone by listening to your team, like active listening strategies, demonstrating that. You teach that to your customer service folks. Like, if they don't explicitly get it taught, they sort of watch everyone and they learn how to do it. But listening, I underscore, is so important. And then the other part, I think, for a manager, when your employee is stressed out about something, take the time to listen to them. I know you have 20 things on your plate, but it's important. Like, you don't want to have the 21st thing of having to replace an employee. Not in this job market. I don't want to be, recruitment and retention is one of the biggest challenges of managers, and I'm sure that's a big issue in the workforce. So take the time to let them vent about whatever is going on. Maybe let's take a deep breath together. I know it sounds corny. No, I'm going to own it, right? But if you are that stressed employee, they might feel really validated that my boss heard that I was stressed and helped me take a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the kind of boss you want to stay and work for.
Yeah.
Modeling and listening, I think, can be a real plus.
And can we normalize just saying to our boss, I'm taking a mental day today. Like, I need to use PTO for just a mental day. I'm not sick. I'm not nothing of that. Like, I'm physically okay, but I just need the day off to decompress, to do nothing, just to lay on the couch, on the bed, or whatnot, and just be lazy because sometimes we need that. Our bodies, our brains need that reset. So, can we please normalize just saying, I need a mental day off?
I love mental health days, and I think you could, it depends how your company does PTO, right? If you have PTO, if you have vacation and sick days, it's you have to kind of go through the lie to get the mental health day. I mean, who hasn't done that?
Right.
Who,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything. You know, versus if you have a policy on that, that's something that organizations can do, is work on their policies. Um, but you can allow people to take a mental health day, and frankly, I'd rather you plan it, because if I know you're going to be out, so let's say you have a big a big project you're working on and it's completed. It's completed, on the Friday, and you're like, I want Monday off as a break. I've been working extra hard for the last 2 weeks. Go ahead. You worked hard for 2 weeks. You couldn't take a day off in the middle of that, so take the day off after, plan it, and then the team can accommodate that. It makes it almost easier if you just, now sometimes you don't know you're going to need a mental health day, but that's just like you don't know you're going to get sick.
Hmm.
I don't see a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, someone mentioned Adam Lewis, if you need a mental health day off, then there's something very wrong with one's work-life balance. And I think it happens to majority of us, right? We've got kids, spouses, parents, or whatnot that we deal with outside of work. So it's not just work that we're probably exhausted or tired from, it's just life in general.
Yeah.
Some of us have babies and, there's just so much going on. Everyone's life is very different. And so sometimes the mental day is because of my personal life. Like the kids aren't home, they're at school. I just want to take the day off to just sleep. I need to catch up on sleep.
I had a day off. It became a mental health day when the internet went out because of a rainstorm here in DC, and I had no internet, and I was like, I'm just canceling all my patients. I'm not going to be testing it every half hour. Do I have internet yet? Do I have internet yet? I'm just going to take the day. And I emailed my patients and said, hey, I'm having internet problems. Let's reschedule. And it was like, I sat down on the couch. I watched a couple Schitt's Creek videos, a cup of hot cocoa. Great day. Great day.
Yeah.
And take some deep breaths.
Before going to the next question, Dr. Nabil, I do want to acknowledge those of you in the audience. We thank you so much for the comments. Lots of comments coming in. We encourage you, we still have time. We encourage you to ask Dr. Nabil some questions, right? So please type your questions in a comment box. We'll make sure to monitor the comment box, and then we'll pick up the questions and we'll ask Dr. Nabil on your behalf. So we thank you again. Thank you for being here. If you don't mind, drop your name in a box and where you're from, or where are you currently located in. Want to know where you're at today. And now going to the next question, and this is about handling stress and pressure. So I do want to start by saying, right, and Dr. Nabil, please correct me if you think I'm wrong, if you're of a different opinion. I think that a certain level of stress is necessary in life and in work in general, because without any stress, there's no progress. Like that saying, no pain, no gain. But it has to be at a acceptable level. When it goes beyond a certain level, it becomes very harmful, right? It becomes very unhealthy for us. So I want you to wait on that. And then the question is, uh, you know, our field, property management, stress is very common. Like we're living in stress all the time. how can professionals in multifamily effectively manage stress and pressure, both individually and as part of the team? Because as we know, right, if you're a pre-even kill person and you're always the person that people want to gravitate around because they feel calm around you because you're always calm, right? But there's another team member that always stresses out about everything. That kind of creates, especially when you're at the top, especially when you're in a management position. When you're in a management position and you're stressed out, your team feels it. It goes down, it trickles down. Like you influence their mood, their state of mind. Am I wrong in saying that? And how does one handle with that? Like with handling their own, their own stress, their own pressure, and pressure coming from their peers or from the top.
So I'll start with everyone. We do need some stress. When you're not under a lot of stress, you're not going to get a lot of performance. For example, if I have a project, if I know I'm going to have a project in 2 years, I'm not working too hard on that if there's no pressing deadline, if there's no abstract needed or an outline. Like, oh yeah, I've got that project. It's on my list. It's low on my list, and so I'm not going to work on it. But if there's a deadline, I need an outline by by 2 weeks from now, then the pressure gets higher, and so then you start to work on it. So stress absolutely is a motivator. Too much stress can decrease performance, and extended periods of time in that level of stress can lead to burnout. Like I think my conceptualization of burnout is being in that sense of stress, high level of stress that affects your performance, and you're in that for an extended period of time, like weeks or months. So from an individual perspective, it's really about trying to prioritize your work, talking to your manager or supervisor, or really, if we're talking about people who are interfacing with VPs and stuff, really getting clear on what the priorities are so you can allocate resources accordingly. And maybe the monthly report you always do is not as important as this other project that needs to get done faster. And if you're trying to work on both of them at the same time, you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself. If you're higher up, can say, no, pick this one right now. We need that one done. That gives you some clarity, right? So I think being clear about what your priorities are, I think working with bosses to help them understand capacity. Like that's the systemic issue that we need to address, as well as, do you have the workforce needed to accomplish those tasks? Like, maybe you need more, maybe there's so much work you need another person finally. And the fact that we're always falling behind and that we're not hitting the deadlines is potentially a demonstration that there actually is too much on your plate. For the individual perspective, I think it comes down to a lot of the coping strategies we've talked about. I would add humor. You're in wild situations at dealing with consumers sometimes, and it's okay to laugh about it. Not on TikTok. Like, don't say the story on TikTok that it's identifiable, but like, I can understand and respect when the office door is locked, you get to say whatever you want, and that's okay. That's a safe space, and it needs to be a safe space. Like it can't but if you need the ability to be able to vent about things, and I think humor. You won't believe what I heard today, or I can't believe what someone threw down the toilet. Because frankly, I suspect in the pandemic, a lot of toilets backed up in rental properties because people were using the bathrooms way more than they had before. And with the toilet paper crisis came the wipes, and then they're flushing the wipes. And I can imagine maintenance going, "You won't believe I found this ball of," like, am I imagining it?
Yeah.
This happened, right?
Yeah.
You're not.
So
It's very real.
you
It
get
was
to laugh
very
about
real.
you get to laugh about that. Like, you get to, I think it's okay to sort of, oh my gosh, really ridiculous. Like, and experience that, get that stress out that way. But obviously that is behind closed doors, and it needs to be done with, you can't be interfacing with the public like that. So I understand,
Mhm.
but it's okay to have that dark sense of humor at times, because otherwise, how are you going to deal with all this?
Mhm.
You get, like, people are wild right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say that I love to laugh if I'm going through something like, I'm stressed or whatever it is, I'm feeling down about anything. And I know who I can call. I can call Damian Mills, and I know he's always going to make me laugh about something. And I'll be crying to him, and he'll just find something to just laugh about. And then I feel a little bit better, and just it just does something to me mentally. That I'm like, okay, I laugh now. I feel better.
I mean, I think you need to be heard first. Like, you need someone to hear that sounds awful. I'm sorry that happened to you. Can you believe that MFer?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
you're right.
Right. Exactly.
So
So.
acknowledging that, I think, is really a big
Mhm.
part of managing the stress of being in rental properties.
For sure, for sure. Now, listening to us, we have leaders and non-leaders, but I think it's important to talk about any training and awareness programs that they can recommend. So, do you know of any specific training or any programs that would be recommended for multifamily professionals to better understand and address mental health challenges within their teams?
I don't know of any in particular. I mean, I do offer trainings like that on how to, for talking to your teams about managing stress. I do a 1 hour talk on that. I could also do retreats, and I think you could find other mental health professionals who can do that. It's not everyone can teach mental health in a way that is engaging to folks. So I think you want to be thoughtful about that. I can make this a lot of fun, but there are plenty of people who could do that. So, and I think I would think about a couple of things. One is teaching people about mental health and mental health management strategies. So, like, a great time for that would be in May mental health month. I think about training for managers, and the secret to training managers. And when I'm talking managers, I mean people responsible for teams, right? I know some titles, you may have the title manager, but you don't have staff. But I'm talking people who manage staff. We are not taught how to do that. Like, think about it in your classes in college, if you went to college, because not everyone will have gone to college. But like, if you went to college, there's not a lot of classwork on how to manage people. And so we assume if you're good at your job, you're good at managing people. I'm sorry to say that is a different skill set. And so teaching people some of those skills. And I go into the basics. I talk about communication skills, active listening, reflective listening, um, paying attention. Honestly, in this day and age, how many of your bosses talk to you like this? Uh huh. Uh huh. How was that? Okay. Do you feel heard when someone talks to you, like when someone's listening to you like that? Versus, here's my phone. So, Nada, what's going on? How's the last couple days gone for you?
Mhm.
Like that is something that can be taught. That is something that can be taught. So I think those are the kinds of trainings that, and then the other part in trainings, I think, would be training managers to be more receptive to mental health issues. So how to talk about their own mental health challenges. I'm having a really hard day. I'm going to take the rest of the day as PTO because it's been stressful. So, Adrian, can you cover the rest of the day? Like, that kind of, so training managers to do those kind of skills. I see those as a couple workshops, one on communication strategies, one on modeling for mental health, and then one for the team on managing mental health.
I do want to say we had some very interesting comments and questions from our audience. So I want to start with Damien. Damien asked a question is not addressed to Dr. Nabil, but I want to make sure he knows we're reading it. Can we add hot topics and Q&A to the Multifamily Hangout? 100%, Damien. If you have questions that you want to ask our guests, the best way is to either send them in advance to me or Nada, or to just type them in the comments. We're always, like our producer Alex, that's all it does. He reads the comments and he pings us if Nada and I, by some chance, we're missing the stream. He's pinging us. He makes sure, or he puts it on the screen. So we're always here. We'll like to hear from you. So definitely the answer is yes. And a question that he has for Dr. Nabil, and this is, what is your favorite stress reliever?
My favorite stress reliever, I actually love street art, and so I photograph street art, and I find it whenever I travel. I go looking for street art, and so that's, if you go on my Instagram, my Instagram is about 85% street art, 10% travel, and then 5% food. So, I find places where there's cool street art, and then I walk around the neighborhood, and you're always seeing neighborhoods that are off the beaten path, right? And so, or sometimes they are on the beaten path. I just took a cruise, and I went to Cartagena, and I was in the Gethsemane neighborhood, which is known for street art. But that in Cartagena, that's pretty common. Like, people know that. And so, but I had a great time walking around and looking at the street art. So that's my personal hobby. What are yours? Since that question was posed to me, I'll ask Nada and Adrian. What are your hobbies for managing stress?
For managing stress, I walk. Being by myself helps me tremendously. When I'm by myself, when I'm in my own mind, it's kind of the most helpful thing, because I flush out a lot of negative stuff, and I try to do that while I walk. So there's a physical exercise involved in it too. Those are the times when I get the most stress out of the way, out of my head, right? I sweat it out, basically, physically, like literally, and metaphorically too.
Yeah.
Yes, mine's similar to Adrian's. I like to work out. I go to the gym, lift weights, and that for me just does something. So I just put my earbuds in and play some good music, some, energetic type of music, and then I'm in my zone. And I like when I'm by myself working out too, because just like Adrian, I can be in my own thoughts. I'm, just talking to myself, or just being in my own company. That for me has always worked.
I love the power of music. You mentioned something, music. I think you should have music for different periods. So you should have the calming down music. You should have the energized music to get you ready for the day music. The breakup music if you need it. But those music really does resonate for people. And so I wish I could play an instrument. I can't. I can sing badly. So
Same.
I'll sing along to my songs.
Adrian, you have a question here.
Yeah, that really hurt. Do Eagles games add stress to you? They tend to do that a lot lately, right? We haven't won in a while. The season is it's over for us, but I think it's for the better. The other team the other night, Bucks were the better team, and it's good to end a pain, right? A painful situation is good to end, versus just living in agony. I'm a strong believer in that. So thanks for the question, Ken.
I'm going to ask, if you're a Kansas City fan, you can take that stress and shake it off. I never thought I would make a
You're referencing to Taylor Swift.
like Taylor Swift and a football joke at the same time. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know where did this happen on my 2023 bingo card.
I know.
That this would happen, but I'm gonna shoot my shot.
I love it. I love it.
I have one comment here from Kane that I meant to just kind of read it to everybody. I think a major thing that can help is having someone you trust that can take over while you're away. I actually think it can be incredibly important position for any company or industry to have that someone who can fill in. Basically, you're talking about a backup person or a backup, someone, a backup person, someone who you just know can hop in and can actually help you get away, not being mentally connected to your job. That's my note. If not, it's so hard to really block out work. With technology and update and notifications, it is constant. The Osable River in North Michigan is my getaway. Find something that helps. Kane, thank you so much for the comment, and I'm gonna let Dr. Nabil just kind of comment on this.
I agree. Having someone you can trust, huge deal. I think I value cross training in teams so people can cover back and forth. And I think this is where your manager can help in terms of helping you identify someone who could do that. And then sometimes that training may need to be to your supervisor, right? Your supervisor may need to be the one who learns how to do it, because they may not know the details of what you do. But being able to trust someone to do that is very important. I 100% agree.
Megan, you are my type of girl. She typed in, my go-to song is Gonna Make You Sweat, Everybody Dance Now by CNC Music Factory. So if you're a kid or like a teenager of the 90s, you know exactly the song. And you know, it was in the 1990 or 1991 CNC Music Factory. They had a couple of big hits that I still play up to this day. So thank you for reminding me the great times of the 90s out there.
My 90s song is Freedom by George Michael.
Love it.
That was the song I did with my dissertation. And then right now, my favorite song for setting the day is Golden by I'm blanking on her name. Living My Life Like It's Golden. Jill Scott. That's my song. It's a lovely, happy song, you know. So I'm enjoying that. And I do sing that in the shower. I saw a comment. I do sing that in the shower. Badly, but I do.
How about you, Nada?
I've got a few go-tos. So mine is definitely Happy by Pharrell. That one always just gets me moving. I also like to listen to the one by Katy Perry, Fireworks. I like that one. That one gets me pumped up too.
Those are good songs. Those are on my motivation playlist.
Do we've got time for one more question?
That's up to Dr. Nabil.
I've got a hard stop. So
you have a hard stop.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Well, then we're gonna have to wrap up. We thank you, Dr. Nabil. We really, really thank you. It's been a great, amazing conversation. The proof that it's been an amazing conversation, we didn't even go over like a third of the questions that we want to ask you. That's to me a sign of a great conversation. Very, very engaging. Thank you for being here with us. You know, we truly appreciate you. How can our audience get in touch with you?
You could find me at Nabil at executivetherapy.solutions. My website is executivetherapy.solutions. and on LinkedIn, Nabil El-Ghoroury, or Twitter, Dr. Nabil.
Neda, any final thoughts?
Nope. Just want to just remind everyone that next Thursday, we will have Felicia Queen joining us. She's going to talk about learning and development in the industry. So we're excited to speak with Felicia next week, learn more about how we can learn and grow in property management, multifamily.
Thank you all of you that join us today, hang out with us. This is the Multifamily Hangout. Also, thank our friends from Apartment Snapshot for partnering with us, for making this podcast possible. I hope you all have a great afternoon, and I'll see you all. We will see you all next week with Felicia as a guest. Have a great day.